Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tip Tuesday. Geoffrey Nance here with you again, and we're going to talk about a topic that's certainly pertinent to where we are this time of the year, uh, affectionately known as the holiday season. So we have Thanksgiving coming up very, very shortly here in just a little over a week, and then we have Christmas, and some people are already gearing up for that. So the question that we pose to you today is it really worth it to trade during November and December, or is this a time when we should just take off? There's this idea out there that the professionals just kind of take off, and that's not accurate at all. Remember that they can simply go in there and set massive buy and sell orders at certain prices, so they just execute automatically, and it's very easy for them to do that. So they're not gone. They're still watching things. They're still monitoring. Will they take off for a day or a week or so? Sure. But again, it's not like trading just totally gets messed up or changes or, just becomes something completely different than it is the rest of the year. Now, might we see the volume be a little bit lower than at other times? Sure, but that doesn't mean that our patterns aren't going to hold up. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to work like they always do. So, what I thought might be an interesting thing for us to do is obviously go back and look at history. So, there is a prevailing thought out there that in December, the market goes up, and it's what they call a Santa Claus rally. The idea that everybody's out there buying gifts, and because of that, basically the companies are going to do well. They're going to make a lot of money with people out there buying a bunch of stuff. So, in theory, as basic as that sounds, I mean, it does make sense that they would see a run up towards the end of the year there, that last quarter. So, historically, over the last decade, has that held up? Has that really been the case? And if it is the case, is it something noticeable? So I thought it would be a good opportunity for us today, and I'm going to share my screen with you here, to just actually go look at it and just say, well, is that true? Is there really anything to thinking that the market just goes up and that it's in any way significant during December, or how does that work? So I'm going to share my screen with you. You should be seeing charts by Tradeway now. And what I've done is I think I've got like a 10-year stretch here, and this is set to monthly. So each candlestick represents 1 month. And let's just kind of go back to obviously the last 2 months of each year and just kind of see if we see anything. I mean, that's the best way to do it, right? If we want to know historically what's happened, then let's go look at history and see what's happened. All right, so back in 2013, we see November is down slightly, but not like an overwhelming candlestick. And I think the key here, guys, that I want you to see is twofold. One, did the market go up or down in November, December? And then two, was it noticeable? So in other words, yeah, it might have gone up or down, but was it something where we look back and be like, oh, that was a big rally, or that's clearly a time when the market was moving up, not like it was in July or something like that. So we're looking at a twofold idea here. Did the market go up in November and December during that year? And if it did, was that substantial, or is it really not that big of a deal? Maybe we should just trade like we always trade and not really make a big deal out of November, December, anything like that. All right, so obviously November was down, but compared to other months, not a big deal. December was up. Okay, December was up, and it was probably just maybe on average with some of the other months here in 2013. All right, so down in November, up about average in December 2013. The next year, we have a November that's just, I mean, nothing to really write home about. It's kind of up, but not a big deal. And then we see that December actually dropped. So it's actually just the reversal of 2013. So no significant movement or anything, to see here really. Okay, just not much to it, just kind of normal trading. All right, what about 2015? November was a little rocky here. Notice the big wick. So at one point during that year, the market was actually down quite a bit, but it did recover to close in the green. But look at December here. Now that's noticeable, guys. Now in 2015, we had some big candlesticks throughout the year. All right. So comparatively, again, does it look like that one? No, it's about half the size of that candlestick. Does it look like that one? No, it's about maybe 2/3 the size of that candlestick. So again, it was up in November, but it had to work. It was up in December, but it wasn't like it, just blew things out of the water. Following year, it's up in November, but again, barely. I mean, just barely positive. Is it up in December? Yes. But again, not noticeable, not a big deal, just up. All right. The next year, down in November. So we see that for the most part, we're starting to get an idea here that more often than not, November has been a bit of a struggle. Even though it's tended to end up positive more often than not, November's been a little bit more of a struggle for the market, but December, generally speaking, has been up, but it's not like it's up some astronomical amount where you'd be like, wow, trading is so different in December than it is like other times of the year. We haven't seen that emerging at all. So here again, November is down, not much, but down. But look at December. Now, December this time, 2017, that's a pretty noticeable candlestick. So there was a significant rise up here, and that's been the first time. So now we've been through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And this is the first time when we've seen what we would call a sizable move up in either November or December. So 6 years, once out of 6 years. Now, obviously, guys, we talk a lot about patterns. We're looking for predictable, repeatable, and reliable. I would say that 1 out of 6 is not much of a pattern. So far, our data, right, when we're doing this scientifically, is telling us that December has not really stood out as a significant month where we can just expect to see massive movement up in the market. That just hasn't been the case so far over the 6 years that we've looked at until right now, where we see our first really noticeable movement. All right, then we go to the next year. Notice October is a big candlestick down. November is a recovery here. And then look at December, barely even noticeable. So November, big move up, but then December, barely noticeable. Interesting. So what do we do with that data? That kind of flies in the face of what we've been seeing, where November is fairly tame, almost a little struggle to even get positive. And then December's moved up. Well, here we see something quite opposite. So, when we see something that doesn't match any of the other data points, it makes sense to then look at that and say, well, that's the outlier. That's the anomaly. So let's treat that as such. Over here, again, we see quite a bit of movement in November, but overall, not much. December, pretty big move up. Now, nothing like this move here, nothing like those down moves there, but still pretty noticeable December. All right, so that's kind of where we've been. All right, now we have COVID bear market 2020. All right, so we would expect, right, COVID bear. All right, so this is our bear market, and now now that the bear market is over, we're in a bull market run up. Okay, we're in a bull market run up. So we would think that at this point, if we're going to see any significant like November, December moves, wouldn't it come after a bear market in 2020? Well, let's see if the data shows that. Now, what we can see is the biggest move up clearly doesn't come in December, January, February, March. It's April, right? So when the new bull market starts, the first month of a new bull market is where we clearly see our biggest move up. What does November and December look like? Decent move up, but again, not any real different than any of these other months. See, sometimes we talk about this idea of this thing called the summer doldrums where there's not much trading going on. Well, really, guys, think about it. I mean, it's like, are these candlesticks over here during the summer months that much different than the ones that we saw in November and December? I would say no, not really. So again, the data is kind of saying to us, yeah, November, all right, it moves up. December, okay, we do see a move up more often than not in December. Okay. Well, what about over here? Now, guys, 2021 is going to be another data point. We're going to look at this and be like, whoa, that's different. Look at this massive drop in November of 2021. I mean, this is a massive move down. Certainly very, very different than any of the other, like at this point, we're up to basically 10 months or 10 years of data. This is the first time we've seen anything like this in November, and this was just last year. All right, and then December here, we obviously see a pretty massive recovery. But when you look at the totality, where did we start in November here? Where did we end in December there? Well, there was some massive movement. So again, a lot of volatility in November and December that particular year. But when it's all said and done, we kind of ended up in the same spot. So that would have been pretty tough as a new trader to really trade in that atmosphere. And now we move over into 2022 and say, well, Geoffrey, here we are in November. We see a big candlestick down here. And then what are we going to see, past this? What is it? What is it going to look like? We don't really have November data over here. We got, what do we have so far on this thing? We've got January, February, March, April, like May. So I don't know why they didn't show us more than that. But that's kind of where we've ended. And so now we're here with about 2 weeks to go in November. And for the most part, guys, November has turned fairly bullish. Now, it was a bit of a struggle, but then it did turn fairly bullish. And you can see over here on this chart, November, this is our first, so that's our first day of November right there. So again, we've had a big drop, but then we've seen a substantial recovery. Now, they didn't like the election results initially, but then the CPI numbers came in and they acted like somehow everything got cheaper. And all inflation did was drop minimally. It's still up. I think it was like 7.5% more than it was last year. And they acted like we had dropped down to 1% or something. It was just crazy. But overall, we're going to look back in November since we started here, and we're going to end probably, well, who knows? We don't really know where we're going to end. But it does kind of look like it's going to be a fairly minimal move, maybe with a candlestick that's kind of a large wick down here at the bottom, particularly if we end up here. And then we'll have to see where December lies. But I think when you kind of look back at this, if you can kind of picture what some of these are going to look like. I mean, May is going to be a massive red candlestick. June is going to be a massive red candlestick. And then July is going to be a massive green candlestick. August is going to be a massive or pretty well. It's going to be a massive red candlestick too. And then September is going to be a massive red candlestick. So and then we're going to look at October, and October is going to be a massive like green candlestick. So this year we've seen a lot of volatility, primarily moving down. Now at the end of the year, after such a big move down, is this really the bottom here? It seems a little crazy. There's a lot of people still anticipating that 2023 is going to be worse. So if they're right, how do we finish out, this year? What does that look like? Do we kind of get up here into this range again? Do we get back up here to close to 4,200 and kind of end the year off in that territory? If so, November and December look again kind of like we would see most of the past decade. Green, but not substantially, not overwhelmingly like green. where you're like, whoa, look at all the trading opportunities I missed because I didn't trade in November and December. So I think the conclusion that we can draw from this is that basically trading doesn't change too much in November and December. So if you're ready to start trading, or you feel like you've been trading and you're wondering, well, does trading change much? I think the answer is, historically, at least for the last decade, not really. Not really. You haven't seen a lot of changes. Things don't really just all of a sudden go haywire. Is there a Santa Claus effect? Minimally. Does the market tend to go up in December? It does. But should we overplay that hand? No, not really. The data doesn't really support that over the last 10 years. Certainly, yes, moves up, but substantial moves up and anything noticeable, we'd be like, whoa, you've got to be in the market in December. Not necessarily. Certainly, again, grain more often than not, but nothing out there where you're just like, wow, if I'm not in the market in December, I'm just going to be missing all kinds of opportunities. So, in conclusion, what I would say to you guys is, yes, we can expect that, markets should, generally speaking, move up in November and December, but nothing out of the ordinary. And there are sometimes, it looks like about twice out of the past 10, 11 years, where we did see some significant movement either in November or December, where we saw a pretty massive candlestick either up or down. And again, maybe we're aware of that, but I don't foresee that happening. Now, again, with some of the news and the things going on, we could see that, but maybe not. I could see us kind of floating up to end off this year and what would be, a pretty hectic year full of a lot of volatility. Would be kind of funny and ironic to end with a fairly smooth November and December. So anyway, that's our tip for today. Thank you guys for being with us, and we will see you next time.